Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Anita, it's your birthday.
Happy birthday to me.
You're old.
I am. I actually can't believe how old I am. I remember when my mom was this age and thinking, man, she's old.
How old are you?
I am 41.
That is very old. It's older than me.
Well, I mean, that's always going to be the case.
Yeah. Well,
Unless you die.
true, which we've been discussing this week because I thought I was going to die from dysentery, from food poisoning or something this week. So my funeral celebration is set in stone on text. I want a train of tacos.
And a bounce house.
Yep.
I'm on it.
Nintendo's for the kids because it's boring for
Your
them.
wish is my command.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to argue with Sylvia, though.
Why?
She might have different ideas.
Okay. I'll get it notarized. Maybe
Thank
that
you.
will help.
Okay. Very
So, Anita,
good. Mm-hmm.
you just returned from a trip again, and I want to hear everything, especially about your dad.
My little sister just got married. We talked about her engagement a few months back and how I was having mixed feelings about that announcement. So I was a little bit nervous about her actual wedding. But then it turned out to be really fun and enjoyable and not a huge, scary thing like it potentially could have been. We traveled to the great state of Texas, to Dallas, and I traveled with my parents, which was immensely entertaining. My dad is a little nutty, and he did not disappoint, ever.
Go, Randy, go. I was really concerned that you were not going to be able to heed my recommendations for food and go to Pecan Lodge.
Well, instead of going there once, we went there twice. We got into town. It was just my parents and I in the beginning, and then the other family members joined us later throughout the day. And Mel says we needs to go to this place. And so we went to it, and we ordered our food, and we're eating it. And my dad, out of the blue, says, "This is good for man. Meat is for man.
What?
This is good for the body. Food is meant to be enjoyed.
Was this a new revelation for him?
I cannot speak to whether it was a new revelation for him. It's the first time I've heard him say words like that. It was so funny. And I don't think he wasn't meaning like meat is only for men. He would like meat is for mankind is what he was saying.
He's very inclusive. Thanks, Randy.
Yeah. So then the day before we left, we had the whole family together, or most of the family, and we were discussing what we were going to do. And he was like, we got to go back to that place. That was some good food. They need to experience this. So back we went 2 times, 1 trip. It was good.
It's so good, right?
Meat is for man.
Let's put that on a shirt.
Oh, my goodness.
Speaking of shirts, guess what, y'all?
What?
Guess what is available starting today? Anita, you don't even know this, actually.
I know. That's what I was going to guess. I was going to guess shirts.
Yes, and other merch. It's official. Our Widow We Do Now store for merch is officially open.
Really?
Yes, this store will be open until June 15th, and then it shuts down.
Oh.
So get it while you can.
Yeah, this is like a pop-up merch shop.
Yeah. Pop-up merch. We have been taking into account what people are requesting, so check it out. There are a ton of designs that you can get. You can get them in various colors. There's buttons. There's tumblers.
I was thinking buttons on your shirts, but I think that's not what you meant.
Not my buttons. Not my gumdrop buttons. So, yeah, check it out. The link is on our Facebook page. And also, we'll post it in our Widow Wives Club, and in our Instagram, we will link to it in our bio.
That's really cool. I'm excited to see what we have, too, because I don't even know.
You actually designed one of the shirts, and I put it in there. I didn't even tell you.
Cool.
I designed things in my bathtub, and so that's where we got some shirts. And special thanks to our friend Kirsten Stromberg for making this possible. It's a whole ordeal to set up the shop and deal with all that goes with it. So thanks, Kirsten.
Gracias.
All the widows, thank you.
Mel, I just got back from Texas. We talked about my experience. What did you do while I was away?
Well, seeing as my memory only stretches back about a day, I'll tell you what I did last night. I was tricked. I was lured into a gig.
Did they lure you with cheese?
Yep, they lured me with cheese, with delicious food. They lured me by saying it was going to be an early start time. They were luring me by telling me that they would provide my gear for me and that it would be done early.
And it was all lies.
Only one of those things happened. They did provide the gear, which I'm grateful for. But
wait, that means no cheese? No food?
I got no, I'm telling you, it was a trap. It was a trap. And they told me that it was going to be limited seating at 20% capacity, which spoke to me because I am like, I don't know how to interact with people that are not grieving like I am, because I'll talk about it all the time. So I get there, no rules, no anything. It was like packed. I've never seen this place so packed. Oh, and by the way, no food for me. And guess what time it started?
Tell me.
10 p.m. It ended at 1.
That's past the pumpkin hour for you.
You guys, I go to bed at 9:30. I'm a golden girl.
So, did you survive?
So, all day yesterday, I was dreading it because I'm like, how am I going to stay awake? Like, how in the world am I going to stay awake and drive there and then play the tunes? So, I drank some caffeine before I got there. And then I saw my friends, and then I played whatever I want. I said, I will do this now. Since you've lured me and tricked me here, you have to let me play whatever chords I want to play. I'm going to mess with you when you're singing and play cooler chords. And they're like, fine. So I got to do whatever I wanted, and I survived. And I tried to use my life coaching tips from Coach Shauna to help me to have a better experience in my mind. And guess what?
What?
I would say I had a 60% decent time and actually kind of fun. Yeah.
So will they lure you again, or will you be wise to them next time?
Oh, now I'm onto their ways.
See? Sometimes experience is help us to learn?
I'm going to give him a contract.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Food provided, 6 p.m., done at 9.
So you got home and went to bed late last night? Well, I probably woke up right after you went to bed because my dad made me wake up super early on my birthday because he was worried about getting to the airport on time. 4:30 a.m. That's not a happy birthday to me.
So, and Texas is 1 hour ahead of our time zone. So
correct.
That's 3:30 our time zone.
In the morning. Yep.
Oh, Randy.
He is so funny.
You are a rascal. I'm glad you had a good trip. I'm sorry you had to get up so early. Aren't you glad you didn't book the earlier flight to come back? You would have had to get up at 2:30.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have an earlier flight. I would have had to have woken up last night. Mel, it's been a long time since we've talked about BetterHelp, who's one of our sponsors.
Yes, and I have been learning a lot about the brain. I've been reading The Body Keeps the Score every day, and I'm learning so many new things. And EMDR is very helpful for trauma survivors. And did you know that you can find a therapist that does EMDR on BetterHelp, even if it's online?
I did not know that. That's really cool. So if you're in need of a new therapist, or you want to try out therapy, or you need to have a change or something new, check out BetterHelp. You just fill out an online survey. They match you with a therapist really quickly. If you're not hitting it off with your therapist, you can always request a new one.
And did you know that you can change therapist same day?
Oh, really?
Yeah. If
like
you're not
mid appointment.
What? Yeah, you're
you
like,
can fire them.
Yes, you're fired. Yes. It's
That's
really
cool.
easy to switch. Yeah, their platform is pretty great. I've been doing it for over a year now. I love it so much. I can show up in my pajamas. My therapist is really great. You know what else they have?
Tacos?
Maybe. They have these things that are like groupinars where they have different topics. They're included, and they have everything from grief to parenting to LGBTQ to COVID support to basically anything people are dealing with. The therapists take part in running their own webinars there. So it's really great. I've participated in some of those. So I highly recommend it. And we happen to have a unique code that gives you 10% off your first month.
It's betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp with a p.com/WWDN.
Check it out. The link is in our show notes as well. And get yourself some therapy
today.
The end.
And fire your therapist in the middle of your session today. Mel, what about the Patreon? You want to tell our listeners about that?
I love the Patreon. It's so fun. We have so much fun in there. We have a lot of videos from behind the scenes content. We also have some discussions in there. And what Patreon is it's a platform for creators where their patrons and people who want to support them are able to do that. So we have 4 tiers available. They start at $5 and they go up from there. So there are different benefits for each level. So go ahead and check it out at patreon.com/WWDN. You can see how I make Anita not sound so mean to me with editing.
And if you hate commitment, you can just buy us a taco at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonow.
One of the things that's cool about Patreon is certain levels get a shout out, which we will do right now.
Our first shout out goes to our secret dead husband. And she says, "We are the world. We are the widows."
You got this, widows. Keep on trucking. Ugh. Next we have Ivan the Misner,
David the Kelly,
Constance the Dahlbach,
Dawn the Satterwhite,
Cat, just the cat, because she's too cool.
Cat the Cat. Now we'll move on to our widow wives and our widow besties, starting with Danielle Catterberg,
A Winehouse, Karen,
Amy,
with no last name, then
Amy Sapp, with the last name Sapp,
Ashley Han,
Christina Shiflett,
Mindy Holmgren,
Dennis Brazo,
Jenny Taylor,
Jenny Wayne,
Kirsten Stromberg, thanks Kirsten for the t-shirt shop,
Laura Bradbury,
Missy Schubertian Symphony No. 2.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Rachel Barbosa, fist pump, fist pump.
Sarah Morris.
Sylvia Shore.
Anna Tracy.
Christina Scambato.
Christine Anderson.
Diana Becker.
Emily Thornton.
Emily Toledo.
Erin Pozick.
She was the first one to wish me a happy birthday because she was one day ahead.
Good job, Erin.
Gabe Lozano.
Ileana Bell.
My sister from another mister.
Jamie Aliota.
My mom, who I got to spend a good deal of time with over the weekend, and it was lovely.
Meat is for man.
Meat is for my mom.
Jenny Barrow.
Our new potential neighbor, Jocelyn.
Fancy Lady Joy Kirsch.
I didn't see her in Dallas. Katie Radcliffe.
Carascara.
Lori Farrington.
Marie Hoffman. Holy cow. Your backyard is looking so good, Marie. Party at your house.
Marjorie Lewis.
Mary McGowan.
Shannon Helm.
Sunshine. Surviving the Weekend.
Tammy Schwartz.
Tara Wallace.
Ian, we can't decide how to pronounce your last name. Sini?
Is it Sini?
Kini?
Seni?
Seni? Sini? Let us know. We'll do better next time, Ian.
Sorry about that Swahili.
Then we have Valerie.
Another green slip for you. And Tacky Wolfprint Wendy.
And finally, Sarah Kennedy. Thank you to everybody who supports us on the Patreon. It really helps us to keep the podcast going and keep finding and helping all the widows. Speaking of finding the widows, we are currently holding a contest or a bribe. I don't know how you would define this.
It's a win-win.
Let's just say it's a win-win. If you write a review and a rating for the podcast on iTunes, shoot us an email with your username of that review. We will enter you into a drawing for a couple, 20. I said 25 on the last podcast, and you said 20 on your post. So
you told me 20 in the text. Who cares? It's 20-something.
It's going to be a $20-something gift card.
Oh my gosh, we're a nightmare. This is what happens when widows rule the world, guys.
So make sure that you give us a rating and review. It helps so that new people searching for resources and support find us. And we can get them into the Widow Wives Club. We can get them the support that we have all found helpful. Hopefully you have.
I mean, hopefully that's why they're listening.
Hopefully. Unless this is their first time. And then welcome, first-timers.
Yes.
We hope you're not traumatized. I mean, you are.
Remember to join our Widow Wives Club on Facebook. You have to answer all the questions. If you have a hard time finding the link to join the Widow Wives Club, either email us or in our Instagram, find our link in our bio, and the link is in that.
When you're requesting to join the Widow Wives Club, there are 4 questions. And you might try to skip over some of them, but please either answer yes or no, or enter the text or the links that are requested.
This does not mean to just give us information. It means if you do not have the link we are requesting, you need to email us and we can help you from there.
If you don't understand what we're talking about, go try to join, and then you'll know.
And remember, you need to agree to the rules, and that's one of the boxes that you need to check.
That's one of the ones that gets forgotten, and
Yeah.
we need you to say that you will agree to the rules.
That's all.
Thank you. Is it time, Mel?
It's so time.
Remember when you were little and you'd say, it's a freckle past a hair? Did you ever do that?
Oh my gosh. I had to reach back in the archives just now, and now I'm remembering.
Yeah.
Woo!
I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
It's time to get to our guest, and we're two young widows trying to help all of you and all of us figure out widow, we do now.
We have a very special guest today.
I know.
He knows very famous people.
He's written 313 books, I
I
think.
think he doesn't think he's funny, and we are so excited to try and derail him.
Absolutely. That's the goal all the time, isn't it?
Yes.
One of the things I'm trying to overcome is a name dropping.
If I had names to drop, I would drop them, as we do.
No, it's interesting because I was speaking in Russia. I don't speak Russian, but I was doing a presentation there, and picture this: I did an exercise with 500 Russians in this audience, and I said, it was interesting because they said, you're this author, you're kind of a thought leader. Don't do any interactive stuff. I mean, I said that's all I do. That's all I do. And so I did this exercise. And I said, I want you to pair up with the person next to you and talk about something really exciting. And they did that. And I called out some people and I said, what did that feel like? They said, oh, that felt great. I said, well, now we're going to try something else. I want you to pair up with that person and you're going to talk about something that you're embarrassed about. And I'm going to go first, So the thing I'm excited about is I'm here in Moscow talking about this book that, did pretty well in your country. So I'm excited about that. But I'll tell you, here's something I'm embarrassed about. I'm a name dropper. And I've already dropped at least 5 names. And every time I do that, I get away with it. People will say to me, Mark, don't be so hard on yourself. At least you know the people. But I've done it 5 times. And afterwards I say, how could you be so insecure? And it's a work in progress. And since it's a work in progress, I'll probably drop some names here.
I thought you were going to say I dropped 5 names and I couldn't pick them all back up.
But
I have a question about that because I think about this from time to time because I'm a musician. And part of that is very important in our profession, knowing who somebody has played with or who somebody has worked with. And I've just kind of observed over time, there are people that are using that to make themselves feel and appear cooler. And then there are people that are like, no, I've just played this gig and here's a fact. Here's who it was with. So what's the difference? Are you saying it because that's just your line of work and that's who you work with? Or to be cool?
Look, I'm a shrink, and it's supposed to be about the patient. We're not supposed to brag. We're supposed to be humble. We're supposed to be yada, yada, yada. But you're actually triggering a memory about a jazz musician, but I can't tell you his name. I used to do house calls to people who were dying and whatever. So this jazz musician, you're going to say, who's he talking about? But you might, Mel, you might especially get this. And they kind of liked that I could just be sort of, direct with them because everybody was, walking around in eggshells. And I said to this one guy, I said, you've won Grammys in 3 decades and, and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, you also had all these run-ins with the law, and drugs and all that sort of stuff. I mean, what the heck was that about? And this was fascinating. He said, well, I'll tell you. He said, when I was young, I realized that I knew something about music. And I guess they'd say I'm a prodigy, but that seems too hoity-toity. He said, but what happened is I had a pushy mom. And he said, every time, I played my music or composed stuff, other people patted me on the head. And they said, that's our little boy. oh, they took credit for it. And I wasn't stupid enough to throw it away, but every time they took credit for it, drove me crazy. And I said, so what does this have to do with the drug use and the law? He said, when I did drugs, nobody took credit for it. So that was something that I own completely. And you got to have something that you own completely where nobody takes credit for it. So my drug use belonged to me. My run-ins with the law belonged to me. And you need that when everybody is like a stage mom and they're taking credit for you. I said, wow, that's fascinating.
It is
Wow.
interesting.
In classic jazz musician form, that is a very creative and unique way to do something.
There you go. There you go.
Wow.
We should probably introduce our guest, don't you think, Mel? Okay, this is the anonymous guest, Dr. Morose. That's what we're calling him.
We're calling him Dr. Morose because he has a story that you're going to have to name drop about it.
I have to name drop. Okay.
This is a name drop, no judgment zone. How about that?
I like that. I like that. So you're going to introduce me, or we don't have to?
No,
That's okay.
I think we
Doesn't
should.
matter.
Everybody, this is Dr. Mark Goulston joining us from Los Angeles, California. Welcome, Dr. Goulston, or AKA Dr. Morose. Segue into story, please.
Yeah, but before I get into the story, I got to tell you something, because when I speak to millennial groups, so here's a little bit of, you're going to look at each other. He just slipped in some name dropping. So when I speak to millennial groups, and I live in Los Angeles, I say, it won't impress you that I trained FBI and police hostage negotiators. And then I show them a slide. I say, what will impress you is they filmed the movie Superbad in my house.
What? Okay.
I told you, see, that's all they remember. They go, what? And I show a picture of one character named McLovin. And next to McLovin is Seth Rogen and Bill Hader. And they're in our bedroom.
Wow.
So I show that to millennial groups, and I'm telling you, that's all they remember.
That's what gives you the credibility, is that story, and none of the...
I was also I worked on the O.J. Simpson trial. They don't remember anything.
remember that, though.
But,
I remember that too. Now we might look young,
We might be older than you
but
think.
we're kind of old. Yes. I think I was in junior high when the OJ thing was going on. You were probably just barely in high school, right, Anita?
I don't remember.
Here's one interesting fact, though, Dr. Morose, a.k.a. Dr. Goulston. I am into true crime, so the FBI hostage thing is near and dear to my heart. And we're both widows, and we have suicide widows in our group. So that is also near and dear to our hearts. So all three of those facts we are very impressed with, including Superbad. So thank you.
Dr. Morose, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself professionally, besides the fact that Superbad was filmed in your house? What kind of a doctor are you? What do you specialize in?
And why do you get called Dr. Morose?
Okay, so I was trained as a psychiatrist. Also, I have something, and maybe this will help people cope. I have something called the Dead Mentors Society. So I've had 8 mentors. They've all died. And one of my early mentors was one of the leading experts on suicide in the world. So he co-founded the suicide prevention centers in Washington and Los Angeles. And there's something called the American Association of Suicidology, and he founded that. And he was at UCLA, and his name was Dr. Ed Schneidman. And he was quirky, and I'm kind of quirky. And so we got along pretty well. And what would happen is he would refer me still suicidal patients who had to be discharged. Now, they weren't acutely suicidal, but you can't keep them there forever. It was just part of their personality. And so he would go up to a consultation with them, and he'd refer them to me, because sometimes the residents in training, they could pick and choose who they saw who left the hospital. And sometimes they didn't want to see these people that they thought would still kill themselves, even though they signed a contract saying, no, I'm good to go. They just sign out and all that sort of stuff. So I became somewhat of a suicide specialist, because he would refer me these people. He'd do a consultation on them, and he'd call me on the phone. And it was always the same phone call. Here's his voice. He'd say, Mark, this is Ed. I'm with this lovely young woman. I'm with this handsome young man. Mark, you could help them. And so they got discharged, and I'd see them. And can I share something that's kind of poignant? Do you do poignancy?
We can do both. We like to live in both worlds.
Okay, so part of my real good fortune was that just before I finished training, there was a fellowship I was going to go into, and the fellowship fell apart. So I said, well, I may as well just go out there, and this guy's referring me people, so it looks like I have, people to see. But why it was my good fortune is because as I started seeing these suicidal patients, because I didn't work in an institution anymore, I noticed something, that when I would be checking boxes and I started to listen into their eyes, and when I listened into their eyes would be screaming out at me, their eyes, you're checking boxes and I'm running out of time. So I had the choice to check boxes or go where their eyes were taking me. And so I learned to listen into their eyes. And part of what I do, because I'm retired now, but I do programs where I, give tips to parents who are worried about their kids or their spouses or whatnot about how do you reach people. And part of the mission that I'm on in the world is, when people are in pain, they're always screaming at you through their eyes. They may be screaming at you, but a lot of times if you look into their eyes, they're screaming at you, I can't take this much longer, I'm running out of time. And if they see you noticing it, and instead of getting scared, giving them all kinds of advice and throwing stuff at them, if you just look into their eyes, and something I've told parents to say to their kids. So here's a little input if you have kids you're worried about and they're in a dark place. When you ask your kids, how you doing? Or you ask anyone, how you doing? And they say, I'm great. They're usually good. But when they say, I'm fine, they're not. When they say, I'm fine, what they're saying is, leave me alone.
I think we are well accustomed to that phrase as widows. We all use it, and we all use it as a code for, I don't want to talk to you about it.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And so what happens is when they say they're fine, if you're worried about a kid, because that's one of my passions is to try to help things, is you can say, and you can even say to that kid or whatever, you could say, if you said you were great, I think you were good, but if you say you're fine, I think you're not fine. And so there's a few questions that I suggest. So you say this to your kid. You could say, at its absolute worst, how awful are you capable of feeling? And they're going to go, huh?
What?
No, you could say, at its absolute worst, how awful, not awful behavior, but how just awful are you capable of feeling? And they may say, pretty awful. And you want to get them to open up. Pretty awful or very awful? Oh, okay, very awful. Second question is, and when you're feeling very awful, how alone are you capable of feeling with it? Pretty alone or all alone? Okay, all alone. So it's what you're feeling is, this is surgical empathy. We've talked about that. You're going in there. And then what you do is you say, take me to the last time you felt it. You're going to say, what? Yeah, take me to the last time. Was it 2:30 last night? Because I heard you walking around your bedroom. And here's an interesting thing is when you can get someone to talk about something so vividly that you see it through your eyes, they re-experience the feelings. And when they re-experience the feelings, they're not alone. Yeah, so what was happening at 2:30? Heard you walking around. Yeah, I woke up. I couldn't get back to sleep. Yeah, we could hear you. What was going on? You really want to know? I wouldn't be asking if I didn't want to know. I was driving myself crazy. Felt like putting my fist or head through the wall. Wow, then what happened? Well, I didn't do that. and then I kept looking around for, I was sneaking around. If you really want to know, looking for some of your sleeping pills, that maybe you left in another room. Did you find any? Because we're looking for those things. No. So what'd you do then? Well, I went back into my room and Mom, Dad, I didn't know how I was going to make it. And then the sun rose. And then what you say to your kid, you can say, I got a favor to ask you. When you feel that the next time, do whatever it takes to get your dad or your mom and my attention. And because sometimes, we're caught up in ourselves, but do whatever it takes to get our attention. Because we don't want you to be there alone. So does that make sense? You can sort of follow that. So it's like peeling the onion. And so I'll share that with you because one of the things that just changed everything for me as a suicide prevention person, there was a woman named Nancy that Dr. Schneidman referred to me, and I think she'd made 3 or 4 attempts, and I didn't think I was helping her. I mean, I saw her probably 2 or 3 times a week, and she rarely made eye contact. And on one Monday, she came in, and I was moonlighting in a hospital that weekend, meaning I was, it was a state hospital covering for other doctors. And sometimes you're up 24 hours, 30 hours, and, if you've ever studied for final exams, that if you're up 30 hours, you get a little bit wigged out. You're a little bit weird. Your teeth are loose, your sphincters aren't working the way they should be, but we won't go there. We won't go there. And so I had been up, and so picture this. So you're looking at me, and I'm looking at you, and when I was looking at Nancy, she's like this. She wasn't catatonic, but I was, sleep deprived. And so I said, and she rarely talked to me, and I said, Nancy, no, what happened is I'm looking at her, the color in the room turned to black and white. So I'm looking out, and the room is black and white. And and I'm relatively young. I said, this is kind of weird. And then I got cold and chilled. And I said, ooh, I'm having a stroke or a seizure. Black and white room, cold. And so I do a neurologic exam on myself. I'm a psychiatrist. I was trained, medical type stuff. And so I'm tapping my elbows. I'm looking at my fingers. I'm whatever. And she's still like this. And I say to myself, I think you're all here. You're not having a stroke or a seizure. And then I had this crazy idea that as I was looking out into the room and it was black and white and cold, that I was looking out at the room through her eyes. That's what she felt. So because I was sleep deprived, I blurted this out. Nancy, I didn't know it was so bad, and I can't help you kill yourself. But if you do, I will still think well of you. And I'll miss you. And maybe I'll understand why you had to get out of the pain. And I thought, I think I just gave her permission to do it. I think I'm really screwed here. And she looked at me. It was the first time she looked at me. She looked right through me. And I said, what are you thinking? And she looked at me and she said, if you can really understand why I might have to kill myself to get out of all the pain, maybe I won't need to. And then she smiled. And I kept looking into her eyes, and I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm not going to throw treatments at you unless you say, I think I need some treatments, because you've been tried on everything. And I'm not going to throw stuff at you unless you say, can we try something? And I'm not going to throw something at you and then have you not try it, and then you come back and you're guilty and I didn't do it and whatever. Would that be okay? And so imagine we're locking eyes like I'm locking on yours. And she looked at me with a look that said, no, keep talking. I'm intrigued. And then I said, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to find you wherever you are. And I'm going to keep you company there as long as it takes.
So interesting. The word choice that you just used.
Yeah. We'll tell you why in a minute.
Because you've been there alone too long, and I just don't want you to be alone there. And then her eyes started to tear up and all the color came back in the room and the coldness went away. And so that was kind of my approach to my surgical my suicidal patients, to listen into their deepest pain and do whatever I could so they felt. And I'll tell you something that I learned about suicide. Boy, this is a comical show, isn't it?
Oh, it will be. Don't worry.
Don't worry. You know, we're gonna hit you with some gotchas and punchlines. You'll never get out of it.
We've already had at least 3 jokes so far. It's fine. Well, it's balance.
Okay. So let me get through the Dr. Morose thing but here's something I discovered. So after Anthony Bourdain killed himself, I wrote an article called "Why People Kill Themselves. It's Not Depression." So this might be of some interest. And it got 500,000 views in 8 days. And I said, a lot of people depressed, they don't kill themselves. A lot of people lose jobs, they don't kill themselves. A lot of people, it may contribute to it. But something I discovered when people are at the end of their rope is they have despair. And if you break the word despair into DESPAIR, that means unpaired, despair, and they're unpaired with reasons to live. Hopeless, helpless, powerless, worthless, useless, meaningless, purposeless. And when they all come together, pointless. And what people who haven't been depressed, deeply depressed, don't understand is that death is empathic to that pain. Death feels the pain and says, I will take it away. And so I think by going into their pain, into the dark night of the soul, and I have a book called Just Listen, which is in 28 languages and actually became the top book on listening in the world. It's about how do you cause people to feel felt? And I think what may have helped with these people is death felt their pain and said, I'll take it away. And if there was a way in which I could connect with them and they felt by me, as Nancy did, they could let go of death and attach to feeling felt. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of?
Yeah. This is so interesting that there's so much to talk about here because we've been doing a lot of discussions about suicide, the medical community, what can be done, what's happening, and all these things that you're talking about are making me I don't want to say like, I feel so happy talking about suicide, but I'm so glad that this perspective is being discussed. I personally, when my sister was suicidal just a few months ago, and so I was the one with her that was helping her contact a hotline, go to the hospital. We dealt with a couple hang-ups as far as the healthcare situation, and it was not until after that I learned how much of an important piece it is to help get better care, because as like we call it, like civilians, I guess, sometimes we don't see that side of things. And so what you were saying about the surgical empathy, I love that because it is addressing the medical issue and that whole world. And empathy is bringing that other really important part of it together. So thank you for talking about this. This is a topic that not a lot of people know how to talk about, and we're glad that you have expertise in it and are willing to talk about it. The other thing is widows, they are in greater danger of suicide within the first 6 months of their person's death. And so a lot of us have experience with either being actively suicidal, passively suicidal, all those things. And we don't exactly know how to help, but we want to help. So these discussions are so important.
I was just going to say, when he was explaining, we said that his choice of words was really interesting. A few weeks back, Mel actually came upon...
I made a little meme for our Instagram account.
Well, first you decided that you had discovered the true definition of empathy. And her true definition of empathy is meeting somebody where they are right then, not feeling bad for where they were a month ago or where they're going to be a year from now, but whatever they're feeling right in that moment, is what you try to connect with, which sounds a lot like what you are describing also.
Yeah, what did I say? I said empathy is meeting somebody where they are right now. And that's one thing that we deal with a lot as widows too, is our husband dies or a person dies and somebody says to us, well, it's going to be fine later, or it's fine because
At least
Easter's coming and Jesus. And we're like, what? That has nothing to do with how I feel right now.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you an intervention with these people who out of anxiety say the wrong thing, and often the wrong thing makes you feel worse.
Please, we need that.
So here's a suggestion. And initially, you might be too ticked off at them. Stop trying to help me. You're making it worse. Is kind of what you're feeling. And I actually did this with a woman whose only daughter was viciously murdered. And one of the problems she had is she said, when people would say, "Do you have any children?" You have to, go into the story. Well, I once had one. Well, what happened? And yada yada yada. And she said, "It's so awkward. Here's what I would suggest with one of those people. And you guys could do it because you have a sense of humor. And when they say it, you go like this. Oh, no, 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 no. And they're going to say, what? And you go, no, 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 no. And they're going to what? And you could say, look, if I was you, I wouldn't know what to say either. And they're going to go, what? You could say, yeah, no. The thing you said, it's because you didn't know what to say, and it's okay. You're off the hook. If I was you, I wouldn't know what to say either. I mean, it's like Bambi, walking around the forest, and you talk to a widow that you didn't know was a widow. It's like, Bambi coming in, after the whatever. It'll be okay. And what happens is, because that's what she would do with people, because to say, well, I had a daughter and she was murdered. What we coached her to do, because it was just so awkward, is she let them say it, and she'd say, it's okay, it's okay. And in those days before COVID, she'd touch them on the shoulder and say, it's okay, it's okay. If I was you, I wouldn't know what to say either. And what happens is it shows such grace that they not only feel better, but you walk away from the conversation saying, that was darn classy. Where the heck did I learn how to do that? That was, pat yourself on the back, girl. That was pretty cool. So do you follow me? It's like a chance to do something like that, because there are when people suddenly, especially when you're younger, when they hear that, it's a showstopper. Mm-hmm.
So that's like in a way, one way that we as the grievers can use empathy, in that we are allowing them to talk to us, but we're not shutting them out because they don't understand and they can't understand.
We talk about that all the time. We're like, nobody knows what to say. We don't know what to say. We've lived through it, and you still don't know what to say to somebody. There is no book that's like, oh, this is what to say. It's...
Well, I'll tell you why it can help when you show empathy to the person who's doing a lousy job of it with you. Over the years, when I would see some depressed people and forget for the moment the widow thing, what a number of them would say when I and here's another technique of surgical empathy. It's called the 5 reallys. So someone would talk about something and you'd say, no, I understand that, but what's really going on? Well, I get, I'm snapping at my kids and I'm sort of just jumping on them, and I know, but what's really going on? Well, I don't feel like I'm getting much help. My kids aren't doing what they need to do. And then if they're not widows, my husband's not much help.
Mine is not much help at all. So it still applies. And I'm pretty sure you're living in my house, because so far you've gotten 2 of the reallys. Keep going.
Yeah. And then, but if you say, but what's really going on? And so this is something that a lot of high achieving women who are unhappy, but they're achieving, that's what they're doing. When you push them, a number of them, when I wouldn't let them off the hook, I remember a number of them would say, I can't find my warmth or my patience. And if I can't find my warmth or my patience, I'm not a very good mom.
Anita, This is meant for you today.
Yes.
But the point is, when they would say that the surgical empathy is what's really going on. And do you follow me? That when they could say that, they could start to cry with relief, because that's what was really going on. I don't know what's become of me. I'm impatient. I tell them to do their homework. They don't cooperate. I tell them to clean up. They're not doing it, and I'm snapping at them, and they're just kids. And so this is another thing. But getting back, this is a real tangent. One of the things I used to do with some of the depressed people, I'd say, what's really going on? What's really going on? And a number of them would say, I don't think I deserve to feel better because I am totally self-involved. Maybe I don't deserve to be happy because, I may say things, but I'm totally self-absorbed. And maybe I don't deserve to be happy because, maybe I just don't care about anyone. So one of the things I would do, is I would have a box of healthy snacks. And we're in LA. There's a big homeless problem here. And I would give them a bunch of healthy snacks. And I'd say, what I want you to do every day is when you walk past a homeless person, I want you to go up to them. Don't scare them. And say, hey, my name's Mark. What's your name? They do have names. And then when they say whatever it is, and they'll be nervous, you could say, hey, yeah, my name's Mark. And you give them one of the snacks, because a lot of times you don't want to give them money because they'll buy alcohol or drugs. And you say, here, here's a little something, hope it helps, and just hang in there. And then you leave. So in other words, this is a chance for every day to do something for someone else that's not going to score you points. But let's see what it does to this feeling that you're self-absorbed, and maybe that's why you deserve to be depressed. And I am telling you, when they did it for a week, they'd come back and they'd be like mumbling. I said, what's the matter? It helped.
And I'm mad that it helped.
Right.
It helped. And so what I'm saying is, sometimes if you're a widow and you show empathy to other people who are awkward, who you're angry at, but if you show empathy and they receive it, it can maybe help a little bit of it, because a lot of what you might be feeling, even though you feel justified, I'm a widow, he left me, it's a real mess, all that stuff, it's all true. But by showing some empathy to other people and feeling, that was pretty cool what I did.
Can I just keep a healthy snack in my pocket and give it to the person instead of showing them empathy? Just give them a fruit snack? Is that not?
That is empathy, isn't it?
Does it work the same or no?
Hey, knowing you people, why don't you just give them a six-pack?
No. Fruit snacks.
Hey, come on. Hey, where's your sense of humor?
You can't even buy a six-pack here. Come on.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I know. So instead, all these people, they have six-packs. They're exercise fiends. They have six-packs running around. But anyway.
Anita definitely does.
Well, we're going to talk about Dr. Morose, because you set that up. Should we tell that story?
Yes. Tell us how you got the name Dr. Morose.
Okay, here's
name dropping number 67, and I approve.
So what happened is a couple of years ago, I was invited to Larry King had breakfast every day for the last 23 years. And it basically got him out of bed. And, and he had quirky friends, people would come by, people would drop in from New York. And so someone introduced me to one of the breakfasts, and I went to it. And they would often talk about sports. I mean, he was a big Dodger fan. He sat behind the dugout. Or they talk about politics and things like that. And often there were some people who were pretty fanatical about sports and politics. But he would look at me and he'd say, what are you doing? What are you listening for? I said, I always listen. I got a book called Listening. Just listen. He said, you're so serious. I said, no, I'm just listening. He said, do you ever stop thinking? I said, no, I can't control it. I'm always thinking. And he said, You're so morose. You're Dr. Morose. And I said, Larry, I don't want to bring anyone down here. Look, I don't want to be a drag. I don't want to be a downer. And he said, no. We need Dr. Morose because sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. We're talking. We don't know what we're talking about. No, we need Dr. Morose. So that was good. But can I share another poignant moment? Because after he died, I did an Instagram because I remembered something. So about 4 months before he died, I would sometimes visit him, and I can do a little hypnosis here and there, enough to be dangerous.
Can't we all?
And so I was hypnotizing him to try to gain some weight because, he just lost his appetite. He had so many illnesses. And this is what I shared on the Instagram thing 3 days after he died, because it just occurred to me. I hadn't remembered it. And when I hypnotized him, and then he came out, I had this feeling that I would never see him again, because of COVID and whatever. And so as I was leaving his bedroom, I looked at him and I just spontaneously said, I love you, Larry. And he looked at me and he said, I love you, Morose. and that was the last time I saw him. But, and I was thinking, geez, how often do you get to have that conversation? It's kind of the last conversation. So just, so my Instagram thing, if you go to Instagram, you can find it somewhere. But, it just sort of overwhelmed me that was kind of a touching moment.
That happens sometimes, right? You never know when's going to be the final piece of it.
That is right.
So you, in your past, before you, I don't know if it was before or not, before you worked with people who were suicidal, you also did a lot of work with people who had experienced trauma in their lives. Is that true? Or was it at the same time?
Yeah, no, at the same time. I actually wrote PTSD for Dummies. Which is a pretty good book, even though the Dummies series is, the Dummies series. And but recently I have a recent book called Why Cope When You Can Heal. And I co-wrote it with this woman. To be honest, I look pretty good, but I was 73 yesterday. I'm pretty old. So I discovered this woman named Diana Hendel, and I want to fade into the background because I'll go on shows, but I don't necessarily want to travel. I'm a grandpa. I want to. I'm not in a rush, but I'm okay with going into the sunset. And so Diana. She was the CEO of a hospital where on her 100th day as CEO, the employee of the month came in and he killed his 2 supervisors and killed himself. And she grew up in that hospital. She was a pharmacy student, and then she rose all the way up to being the CEO. And she has a wonderful memoir called Responsible, a memoir. And I have a podcast called My Wake Up Call. So she was one of my guests, and wake up is one word. My Wake Up Call, Mark Goulston. You can find all these episodes, including the second one with Larry, where he talks about Dr. Morose. But why cope when you can heal? The subtitle is how healthcare heroes of COVID-19 can recover from PTSD. And so I know something about helping people with trauma individually. And she knows something about how do you help organizations through trauma, because organizations have trauma, because initially they pull together and then they finger point, who did this, whose fault is it? And they guilt trip each other. Why were you, where were you? And such and such. So she's my co-author in that. But what we introduced in that is the term surgical empathy, because as I said earlier, and this is our view of trauma, at least for healthcare workers, and the book is perfectly applicable with no changes to veterans, and because veterans have a lot of trauma, so do first responders, so do firefighters, so do police officers. And so what we came up with, and I can't stand the term, but we're getting away with it because it's a modern world. And we have something called the 12 phases emotional algorithm. I told you it was awkward. But what it is these are the steps that people go through when they're traumatized. So now you might have to adjust to this if you're a widow. You may not have to adjust to it, sadly, if you're the widow of a suicide, because it may fit that. But the reason for doing, and I'll tell you what the 12 phases are, is we have this idea that when you can name something, you can tame it. And, so picture this: if you're a healthcare worker or a first responder and it's COVID, and you're in the emergency room and you're used to, 1 or 2 deaths a month, and you just had 5 on your shift, including one of your coworkers. You were 10 minutes late to doing a FaceTime between someone, and their relative. And so here's what you go through. And the reason we're doing this is we're putting together pilot programs, because when they start being able to talk about it, they get it up and out. So the trauma happens, and the trauma is something beyond what you can imagine. You feel horrified. You feel terrified about what you saw. You start to feel fragile. You feel like you're going to panic. But if you're a healthcare worker or a veteran or active military, you can't panic. You have to go back. Your coworkers are. So what happens is, instead of panicking, you get an adrenaline rush from all the danger. Excitement triggers adrenaline, but so does danger. An NBA athlete can, play a whole half on a broken leg if they're running on adrenaline. So adrenaline insulates you from pain immediately. So the adrenaline allows you to push away the thoughts and push away the feelings, because you got to function. So there you are, pushing away everything, functioning, and you don't know how you're going to make it through the next shift. And there you've been up 24 hours. So you almost feel superhuman, but inside you're feeling really messed up. And it goes on day after day, and you're doing it, and you're connecting with people, and you're insulated from it all because of all the adrenaline. But what's going to happen, and I hope the book isn't needed, because when the danger goes away, the adrenaline goes away. And when the adrenaline goes away, the insulation goes away. And all that stuff you pushed away to survive, it feels like it's going to come back and eat you alive. And I'm sure there's some parallel, when you're traumatized by being a widow, geez, I'm walking along and then suddenly something reminds me of it. And it just grabbed a hold of me. I didn't think I was going to make it home. And you get triggered. And so what happens, and we talk about it in the book, is when you can, and that's why you're creating such a great service. And that's why people who are going through the same thing, you got to meet with each other.
Seriously.
Because if you're a widow, especially if you're a young widow and someone hasn't been through it, they don't know. They may be well-intentioned, and you don't want to yell at them, you just don't know. In fact, that woman, thank you for letting me be tangential, because I speak in tangents. But that woman whose only child daughter, was murdered viciously. I don't think I was helping her. I mean, I guess she thought I was helping her. She thanked me. She made a donation to the school, and she thanked me. But what helped her is I introduced her to, if you want to talk about a really rough support group, there's a group called Mothers of Murdered Children. And the Los Angeles chapter, the head of the chapter was Sharon Tate's mother. And Sharon Tate was the one killed by Manson. And so I got her to join the group. I think I was an advisor, for a year. And I'll tell you, this is a group you don't want to be a member of this, because they would share about the murder. They would share, about finding the perpetrator. They would share what the legal thing is, and that's what they do. But what happened is, by going to that, because nobody could really understand what you're going through. What happened, and tell me if you've had this experience, if you've been in such a group, what happened is the younger mothers who had just had a murdered child happen, they looked to her like a mother. She was the experienced one. And so she didn't minimize what they were going through. But what happened is it's like the further away you are, the more that someone who's really new, who's in a panic, I can't survive it. I want to kill myself. If you've been there, you've earned the right to not, gloss over it. You're able to sort of say, I know.
We have that all the time, actually.
It's like mentorship in death.
Terrible, terrible, terrible mentorship. Yeah, and we have both felt that. I think I can speak for you, Mel, but when we have talked to people who have been widows for a long period of time, 10, 12, 15 years, and in the beginning you can't wrap your head around making it that far because all you can think about is right now, and all you can think about is you can kind of live in the past because you just replay that over and over. And so when you meet somebody who's moved forward and has a life that's beautiful and fulfilling, you're kind of confused by them, but also intrigued, and it gives you some semblance of maybe I can get to that point in some, at some point in time. And it means so much more than somebody in your neighborhood, saying, "Oh, it's going to be just fine." You're like, how do you know? But you can really believe it when you've met with people who have lived your same life or walked in the same footsteps before you.
One of the things that they found helpful, but you can use this because you don't want to sound clinical or intellectual, but one of the people I saw, she said, I was walking through, taking a walk and through the woods, and I saw a tree that was cut, must have been 100 years old. And she said, each of those rings on the tree is a year. And it shows the history of the tree. One year there was fire, another year it was a flood. And, and the tree has character because each ring is a different year. And she said, and it was so insightful. She said, I think what I need to do is build new memories to dilute the effect of the other ring.
Interesting.
And the more you build new memories by actions taken, and the actions can be, helping other people. But I thought that was so profound. What a great image, because if you just stay stuck in the thoughts, you're not building new memories to dilute the impact of one of those bad rings.
Isn't it true? Also, I've heard about trees that if there has been a frost or a freeze, that you can look at the tree trunk if you saw it open and you can see when the trauma occurred. So that's interesting because it's not like you necessarily will erase the rings that you've already had. You won't erase the trauma ring that you had, but you can contribute to the new rings.
That's right. And I'll leave you, I collect eloquent quotes. And there was a woman I was seeing, and I didn't think I was helping her. And she came in, she says, I think I'm better. And I said, what happened? And it was so eloquent. She said, you know what it comes down to? Living with life never being the same again. And I thought that is so beautiful, living with life never being the same again. I said, what does it mean? She said, life will never be the same again, but it doesn't mean it's over. Doesn't mean I can't laugh. I'm not ready, but it doesn't mean I can't love. But if I stay stuck in, I can't stand it, I can't accept it, it'll just be different, And a lot of people who've had cancer, 9/11, there's been many times when we just learn to live with life never being the same again. And I just thought it was so beautiful, the expression.
It's true. We live with the dichotomy of traumatic things having happened and also the possibility for joy, or even sometimes those two things simultaneously living together. So all of that is so valuable. So thank you so much, Dr. Morose, Goulston,
for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on. Oh, I'm going to give you one other tip because I like to give tips. So here was another insight. This is from a psychologist, and I just love the way it works. He says that sometimes when you say I can't go on, or I don't know what I'm going to do, he says you put a psychological wedge into your head, which sounds like this: up until now, I've thought I couldn't go on. Up until now, I didn't think I could learn how to deal with it. But I think that's a lovely device because what you're doing is you're putting a pause there and you're separating the past. Up until now, I never thought that I could get beyond this, which is different than I can't get beyond this. I'm sorry, I just can't get beyond this. So it's a nice device. I just wanted to share that with you as a parting shot.
And it doesn't try and erase the past either and just like positive thought yourself out of it. It helps you to, like acknowledge, yes, that was part of me and that happened. And now we're going to try something new, or we're going to see if we can do it now. So good job. We appreciate the tips and all the stories and all the name dropping. We're here for all of it.
I haven't even started with the name dropping. No, just kidding.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Goulston. We really appreciate your time and all of your wisdom. Obviously, you have a lot of experience and knowledge, and I think that all of our listeners are really going to benefit from that. So thank you so much. Remember to check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN. And if you want to buy us a taco, go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonow. Check out the Widow Wives Club. Make sure you answer all of the questions
on Facebook.
And until next time, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Dr. Morose.
And we're just two young widows and one serial name dropper. And we're trying to figure out
Widow We Do Now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks. And so you don't have to pay extra for that. And you still get great service.
Yep. Anita and I have traveled all over and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.